Hey everyone! Today we're exploring another chilling and disturbing case. If you'd like to support the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay engaged. It really means a lot. I truly appreciate it. Now, take a deep breath and let's dive in.
She thought she had found her happily ever after. But one hidden truth would unleash a storm of violence, betrayal, and shocking revelations that no one saw coming. Rachel Harper was a young teacher living in Houston, Texas. She was bright, ambitious, and kind-hearted. To everyone who knew her, she seemed to radiate hope for the future. What many didn't know, however, was that Rachel carried a secret about her family, one she had hidden most of her life. Her mother was black, but because of societal pressure and personal shame from her upbringing, Rachel often passed as white or mixed, carefully concealing her true roots. It wasn't something she was proud of, but it was a truth she feared would change how people saw her, especially the man she fell in love with. Arun Mehta was an Indian immigrant, a successful engineer in Houston. Charismatic, respected, and ambitious, Arun was the type of man who left an impression. To his colleagues, he was hardworking. To his community, he was respectable. And to Rachel, he was charming and attentive. The man she believed was her soulmate. The two married quickly, a whirlwind romance that turned into what seemed like the perfect suburban life. But behind closed doors, cracks began to form. Arun became controlling, critical, and obsessed with appearances. Still, Rachel stayed, believing she could make the marriage work, until the day her secret was revealed. One afternoon, Rachel's cousin visited her home, bringing with her old family photo albums. Inside were pictures of Rachel's childhood and of her mother, a proud black woman whose face made the truth undeniable. When Arun came home and saw the album lying open, everything changed. His shock turned to anger. His anger turned to obsession. And that night, in a chilling confrontation, he unleashed violence on Rachel that would send her to the hospital, bruised, bloodied, and terrified. Arun claimed she had betrayed him, that she had lied about who she really was. In his mind, her identity wasn't just a personal truth. It was an unforgivable deception. Rachel called 911 that night. Police responded, but Arun, calm and calculating, immediately began spinning his story, insisting she was unstable, that she had fabricated everything, that he was the true victim. And with his reputation in the community, with his powerful voice and charm, many believed him. But investigators would soon uncover that this wasn't just a case of domestic violence. Behind Arun's carefully constructed image were secrets far darker than anyone imagined. Hidden bank accounts, secret affairs, and a double life that made Rachel's revelation only the beginning of something much bigger. But what police discovered next would shock even the most hardened detectives. And it would reveal just how far Arun was willing to go to protect his image and silence his wife forever. When police arrived at the Mehta home that night, they were met with two very different stories. Rachel, bruised and bleeding, told officers her husband had beaten her after discovering her true racial identity. Arun, however, appeared calm and collected. He claimed Rachel had thrown herself to the floor during an argument, that she was unstable and overdramatic. He pointed to her mental health history, something he exaggerated to cast doubt on her credibility. But officers weren't convinced. Rachel's injuries didn't match Arun's explanation. Medical reports showed defensive wounds, bruises across her neck and arms, consistent with being restrained. The police opened a full domestic assault investigation. As detectives dug deeper, they quickly realized Arun wasn't the man he pretended to be. Secret finances. Bank records showed Arun had hidden large sums of money in offshore accounts in India. Why was he hiding money from his wife? Affairs. Investigators uncovered evidence of multiple affairs, including co-workers and women in his expatriate social circle. To friends, he had claimed to be a devout husband, but to detectives, a very different picture was forming. Religious hypocrisy. The man who preached morality and faith to his community leaders was secretly mocking religion in private messages. To Rachel, he used religion as a weapon of control. It was becoming clear. Arun had spent years carefully constructing an image of respectability, and Rachel's revelation threatened to destroy that image. Rachel's fight for justice was far from simple. Members of the local Indian community, influenced by Arun's charm, pressured her to drop the charges. A pastor even tried to intervene, telling her to forgive and move on. But Rachel refused. She gathered every piece of evidence she had. Photos of her injuries, the family album, text messages where Arun ridiculed her heritage, even recordings of his threats. For the first time, Arun was facing consequences he couldn't control. The trial became a media spectacle. Headlines read, "Engineer assaults wife over racial identity. American bride betrayed by Indian husband in Texas." Inside the courtroom, Rachel stood trembling but resolute. She recounted the night of the attack, her voice cracking under the weight of memory. Arun, dressed in a crisp suit, sat stone-faced, denying everything. His defense team painted Rachel as manipulative, desperate for attention and mentally unstable. But prosecutors had something more. Phone records, offshore banking documents, and testimony from one of Arun's former mistresses, who revealed his obsession with maintaining status and purity. Piece by piece, the mask Arun had worn for years was falling apart. But just when the case seemed to be tilting in Rachel's favor, a shocking twist from Arun's past would emerge. A dark secret that no one, not even Rachel, was prepared for. Just weeks before closing arguments, investigators obtained immigration records and background checks that had gone largely unnoticed. What they found stunned even seasoned detectives. Arun had not come to America as the brilliant engineer with a spotless history he portrayed. In fact, in Mumbai, India, years before meeting Rachel, Arun had been investigated for a violent assault involving an ex-girlfriend. The case had mysteriously vanished. Charges were dropped. Witnesses recanted, but the police file revealed disturbing details. Controlling behavior, jealousy, and physical abuse eerily similar to Rachel's story. Prosecutors argued this wasn't just a one-time domestic dispute. Arun had a pattern of violence against women. In India, his ex-girlfriend reported that he tried to strangle her during an argument. A second woman claimed he stalked and harassed her after she broke up with him, forcing her to move cities. Records suggested his wealthy family used money and influence to make the cases disappear. The courtroom gasped when these details were read aloud. Rachel's tears confirmed what she had always suspected. This wasn't about her alone. She was just the latest victim in a long trail of abuse. But even as prosecutors exposed Arun's past, his supporters doubled down. Some members of his community claimed the women in India had lied. Others argued that Rachel's case was culturally misunderstood. The courtroom turned into a cultural and racial battleground. On one side, advocates for Rachel and survivors of abuse. On the other, defenders of Arun, who painted him as a victim of racism, targeted because of his immigrant status. For Rachel, it felt like being put on trial herself. Every aspect of her life, every choice, every word was dissected. Then, prosecutors revealed something even darker. While combing through Arun's financial records, investigators discovered large, unexplained transfers of money back to India. Around the same time his ex-girlfriend's case was dropped. Had Arun's family paid off officials to bury his crimes? And was he still funneling money overseas to cover up something even worse? The evidence painted a chilling picture. Arun wasn't just a controlling husband. He was a man who had built his entire adult life on lies, manipulation, and violence, and who may have gotten away with much more than anyone realized. But the most disturbing revelation was yet to come, because hidden in those financial records was a transaction linked to something far darker than assault. something that suggested Arun may have been involved in a crime far more sinister. While digging through Arun's offshore accounts, investigators found a suspicious transaction. A large wire transfer made to a man in Mumbai shortly after his ex-girlfriend's assault case disappeared years ago. The recipient wasn't just anyone. He was a former police inspector in India who had been accused multiple times of corruption and case tampering. This discovery raised chilling questions. Did Arun's family pay off law enforcement to bury his crimes? And if so, what else had been covered up? As prosecutors pressed further, they unearthed something even more disturbing. A missing persons report filed in India around the same time Arun's violent history began. The missing woman, a close friend of Arun's ex-girlfriend. She had reportedly gone to police to give a statement against him and vanished days later. Her case was never solved. Authorities in India quietly closed the file. No body was ever found. Now, years later, that same file was sitting in a Texas courtroom, raising a terrifying possibility. Could Arun have been connected not just to assault, but to something far worse? When prosecutors revealed the missing woman's file, the courtroom erupted. Gasps filled the air. Arun's face, usually cold and composed, twitched with visible anger. His defense team objected, insisting the evidence was circumstantial, irrelevant to Rachel's case. But the jury had already heard enough to question who Arun truly was. Rachel, sitting only feet away from the man who had brutalized her, now realized she may have narrowly escaped the same fate as that missing woman. As media outlets picked up the story, headlines shifted from domestic abuse to something far darker. Texas assault case tied to Indian missing woman? Husband accused of double life. Possible murder links. For Arun, the carefully curated image he had built was in free fall. His supporters in Houston began to withdraw. Even some in his own community distanced themselves as the word murder began circulating. But just as prosecutors thought they had Arun cornered, a shocking twist inside the courtroom would turn the entire case upside down and leave Rachel fearing for her life once again. Midway through the trial, Arun's defense team called an unexpected witness, a woman from his past. Not an ex-girlfriend, but a former colleague from Houston. On the stand, she testified that Rachel was unstable, jealous, and prone to fabricating stories. She claimed Rachel had once threatened to ruin Arun's life during an argument. Her testimony sent shockwaves through the courtroom. For a moment, it seemed Arun had regained the upper hand. But prosecutors weren't done. When they cross-examined the woman, it came out that she had been in a secret affair with Arun for months, and that Arun had paid her money just days before her testimony. The jury watched as her credibility crumbled before their eyes. Behind bars, Arun was still pulling strings. Recorded phone calls revealed him contacting friends, urging them to intimidate Rachel into silence. In one chilling recording, he was heard saying, "She'll break, she always breaks. If not in court, then outside it." Prosecutors introduced these recordings as evidence of witness tampering. But for Rachel, it was more than a legal issue. It was proof that even locked away, Arun's control and rage still reached her. By now, the jury had heard two stories. Rachel's account of years of hidden shame, abuse, and violence. Arun's polished defense, bolstered by lies, half-truths, and desperate allies. The evidence was damning, but the defense was relentless. And then came the bombshell. On the morning of what was supposed to be closing arguments, court proceedings were delayed. Whispers filled the hallways. When the judge finally entered, prosecutors revealed they had received an anonymous package delivered to Rachel's legal team. Inside were photographs, documents, and something so disturbing it stopped the trial in its tracks. The contents pointed to a dark secret Arun had been hiding in Texas itself. One that could change everything the jury thought they knew. What was inside that package? And how could it prove once and for all who Arun Mehta really was? The truth would be more disturbing than anyone imagined. Inside the package were dozens of photographs. At first glance, they seemed ordinary. Parking lots, apartment complexes, coffee shops. But the subject was always the same: Rachel. The dates scrawled on the back went back months before the assault. There were also receipts, surveillance notes, even GPS printouts. Someone had been tracking Rachel's every move. And the handwriting matched documents found in Arun's own desk. The package also contained pages from what appeared to be a journal, filled with Arun's own writing. In it, he documented his obsession with Rachel's racial identity, his paranoia about being humiliated, and his fantasies of erasing her if she ever betrayed him. One chilling line read, "If she ever exposes me, I'll make sure no one ever finds her." The courtroom fell silent as prosecutors read those words aloud. Arun's lawyers scrambled, claiming the package was fabricated, planted to frame him. But handwriting experts confirmed it was his. The GPS trackers were purchased with his credit card. The surveillance photos were taken from his phone. Suddenly, this was no longer just about a violent outburst. It was about premeditation. Arun hadn't snapped in the heat of the moment. He had been planning, watching, and waiting. For Rachel, the package confirmed her worst fears. Arun had never seen her as a partner, but as a possession, one he would rather destroy than lose. She broke down in court as prosecutors revealed that some of the photos were taken while she was with friends, shopping, even at school with her students. Arun had been watching her every step, long before that night of violence. But one detail inside the package left investigators rattled. Among the photos of Rachel was a single image of another woman, a woman no one recognized. The picture was grainy, taken at night, but she looked frightened, glancing over her shoulder. Tucked behind it was a note in Arun's handwriting. She found out. She must be silenced too. Who was the woman in the photo? And what did she know about Arun's secret life? The answer would blow this case wide open. Detectives worked tirelessly to uncover who the woman in the photo was. After running it through databases and speaking with community contacts, they discovered her name: Elena Morales, a 27-year-old paralegal who once worked at the very law firm that initially handled Arun's immigration paperwork. She had disappeared months earlier. At the time, her disappearance raised little suspicion. She was dismissed as a young woman who likely left town. But now, seeing her photograph in Arun's private stalker files changed everything. Digging deeper, investigators found that Elena had raised concerns about Arun's documents during her employment. She told a supervisor she suspected he was falsifying information on his visa application. Discrepancies in timelines, missing employment history, unexplained income. Shortly after she voiced those concerns, she vanished. And now, here she was, staring back from a photo Arun had hidden away. When Rachel learned who Elena was, she felt her blood run cold. If Arun had been willing to silence a woman who knew too much about his past, what chance had she ever really stood? This wasn't just about rage, culture, or betrayal. This was about a man who would stop at nothing to protect his double life. And his lies. Prosecutors wasted no time. They introduced Elena's photo and her story into evidence, arguing that Arun wasn't just abusive, he was dangerous. The jury sat in stunned silence. The idea that Arun could be linked to a missing woman turned the trial from domestic assault to potential homicide. Arun's mask began to slip. For the first time, he lost his composure, slamming his fist on the defense table and shouting that it was all a conspiracy. But without Elena's body, without direct proof of what happened to her, the mystery remained unsolved. Investigators were left with one terrifying question. Had Arun already killed once before? And then, in the middle of the trial, a shocking development would throw the courtroom into chaos. a development that no one, not even prosecutors, saw coming. On what was supposed to be a routine day of testimony, the doors to the courtroom opened, and in walked Elena Morales. The woman everyone believed to be missing was alive. Gasps echoed through the room. Jurors shifted in their seats. Arun froze, his confident mask cracking into something between rage and fear. Elena took the stand, and what she revealed sent shivers down every spine in that courtroom. Elena explained that she had indeed discovered irregularities in Arun's visa and financial records while working at the law firm. When she raised her concerns, she began receiving threats, anonymous phone calls, notes on her car windshield, even a shadow following her home at night. Terrified, she left Houston abruptly, cutting ties with friends and family. For months, she lived under the radar in another state, convinced that Arun had the resources to find her if she stayed. But when she saw Rachel's case in the media, Elena knew she had to come forward. Her testimony was devastating to Arun's defense. Not only did it validate the stalking evidence found in the anonymous package, but it also painted a chilling portrait of a man willing to use intimidation and fear to bury his secrets. Rachel wept in court as Elena described the same paranoia, the same manipulation, the same darkness she herself had endured. For the jury, Arun's polished image was gone. What they saw now was a predator, but it was Arun's reaction that sealed the moment in everyone's minds. As Elena described his threats, Arun leaned forward, his face twisted in fury, and shouted across the courtroom, "You'll regret this. Both of you will regret this." The judge immediately called for order. The jury stared in stunned silence. In that one outburst, Arun had revealed the monster prosecutors had been describing all along. With Elena alive and testifying, the prosecution's case was stronger than ever. But Arun still had powerful connections, money stashed away, and loyal supporters willing to bend the truth for him. And behind bars, whispers began circulating that he was trying to orchestrate something from the inside, something that could derail the case completely. The trial seemed close to its end, but prosecutors were about to discover that Arun wasn't done fighting. In fact, his most dangerous move was still to come. Prosecutors uncovered recorded phone calls and intercepted letters that revealed Arun was orchestrating a plan from inside jail. He wasn't just trying to sway jurors or intimidate witnesses anymore. He was allegedly attempting to arrange a hit. Rachel and Elena's names were mentioned explicitly. Arun had reportedly promised money to a fellow inmate's associate on the outside in exchange for taking care of the problem. The language was chillingly clear. If they can't speak, they can't convict me. The plot unraveled when another inmate, hoping for a reduced sentence, tipped off authorities. Federal investigators stepped in, uncovering phone logs, money transfer attempts, and even coded notes hidden in legal mail. The revelation stunned the courtroom. This wasn't just a case about abuse or deception anymore. This was a man allegedly willing to commit murder for hire to protect himself. When prosecutors revealed the plot, Rachel broke down in tears. She was placed under immediate police protection. Elena, too, was assigned security detail. For both women, the fear was now doubled. Not only did they have to relive their trauma in court, but they had to look over their shoulders, wondering if Arun's reach extended beyond prison walls. Arun's lawyers scrambled. They argued the plot was exaggerated, the words taken out of context, that their client was simply venting frustrations. But for the jury, the image of Arun as a respected professional was completely shattered. Now, he looked more like a man desperate enough to kill to silence the truth. The judge allowed the new evidence to be presented, and prosecutors prepared for closing arguments. Arun sat stone-faced, eyes locked on Rachel as though he could still intimidate her from across the room. But what no one expected was that Arun still had one final trick up his sleeve. On the day of the verdict, a shocking event would occur inside that courtroom. one that no one, not even Rachel, saw coming. The air was electric as the jury filed back into the room. Rachel sat trembling, clutching her attorney's hand. Elena stared straight ahead, refusing to look in Arun's direction. And Arun? He sat unnervingly calm, a faint smile creeping across his lips, as though he knew something the rest of the world didn't. The judge asked the jury foreman for the decision. The room held its breath. The foreman rose. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Arun Mehta, guilty on all counts." Rachel gasped, covering her face with her hands as tears poured down her cheeks. Elena exhaled, relief washing over her after years of silence and fear. For a moment, justice seemed to have won. But then chaos. Before deputies could restrain him, Arun leapt to his feet. His calm mask shattered into pure rage. He turned toward Rachel, pointing directly at her, and screamed, "This isn't over. You'll pay for this. Both of you will pay." Deputies swarmed him as jurors screamed and scrambled back. Chairs clattered to the floor. Arun thrashed violently, his voice echoing through the chamber like a curse. Order was eventually restored, and with the jury's verdict, Arun Mehta was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rachel and Elena walked out of that courtroom alive, but forever scarred, their names tied to a case that revealed not just the darkness of one man, but the terrifying extremes of obsession, deception, and control. For Rachel, freedom came with nightmares. She would later admit she still slept with the lights on, terrified that somehow Arun's threats could still reach her. Elena rebuilt her life, but she too carried the scars of knowing how close she had come to disappearing forever. And Arun? Locked away, stripped of his double life, left only with his rage. Justice was served, but for those who lived through it, the scars will never fully heal. Some wounds, after all, are far too deep. The end.
What are your thoughts on this case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with more stories, where each case isn't just about crime, but also offers a lesson for life.